What's going on, vinyl community? Welcome to another video with the Record Spinner. In today's video, I'm going to be showcasing some titles that Rhino Records has put out for their Rocktober campaign this year in 2025. Rocktober has been something that's been going on for almost 10 years, where every year in the month of October, Rhino puts out some special releases of either reissues or freshly curated titles and make them available exclusively through indie retailers. Now, as a vinyl collector, it's a time of year that I always look forward to. Since Rhino is one of my favorite reissue labels, I look forward to seeing what they put out, and I think I've snagged up Rocktober titles every year since they started doing this back in 2016. So it's consistently good stuff. Hell, I'm feeling celebratory that I'm having a cold one out of my Rocktober koozie that I got as a promo item some years back. Now, I would like to thank Rhino for sending me these titles to show you guys here on YouTube, and if you follow my journalism pursuits, you know that I'll be covering some of these titles on trackingangle.com, so be sure to keep your eyes peeled for those reviews. Now, if you know what my tastes are, the records I'm going to be showing you guys may not come as much of a surprise, but we have a great bit of rocking variety here. We have remixes of classic live albums by Deep Purple, audiophile pressings of Yes, alternate versions of much-loved Stooges albums, Ramones 12-inch singles, and so much more. It's about to go deep, so enough of the chit-chat. Let's jump into what this video is all about. First up, we have the Steven Wilson remix of Made in Japan by Deep Purple. Made in Japan is one of the archetypal hard rock double live albums of its time. You could sense how the live stage is where this Mark II lineup consisting of Blackmore, Pace, Lord, Gillan, and Glover really thrived with renditions of Highway Star, Child in Time, Strange Kind of Woman, and Space Truckin', where the group was able to let loose and improvise in a fun yet dynamic manner, and it's why their reputation as a live act was so great. Even though Smoke on the Water first appeared on Machine Head, it was the live version from this album that became a massive hit and would cement itself as Deep Purple's signature song, and I'm sure right about now somewhere, some Guitar Center employee is banging their head because they just heard the main riff being played for the umpteenth time. So, Made in Japan has been reissued many times over the years, but recently there's been a great Super Deluxe box set that came out this year that brings together the original album remix by Steven Wilson, as well as the 3 shows recorded for the album, newly mixed by Richard Digby Smith. In this case, they broke out the Wilson remix as a standalone release. And as you can see, it looks slightly different. They utilize some different band photos on the front and back cover, which actually appear on the original Japanese pressing of the album, back when it came out in '72, which was called Live in Japan instead of Made in Japan. And the inside has the same design as the original, but just a sort of different color scheme, so it adds a purple border around the band shots and the Japanese sort of rising sun motif. And it's a 2 LP set pressed on nice heavyweight black vinyl with some custom purple labels. Next up is 'Cause I Says So by the New York Dolls. This originally came out in 2009, and out of the original lineup, only David Johansen and Sylvain remained on this album. It was produced by Todd Rundgren, who had produced their classic debut album, and speaking of which, there is a fun reggae remake of the song Trash, which is a good bit of fun. Honestly, I'm kind of approaching this album blindly, but I do love the New York Dolls and the whole garage rock proto-punk thing that they resembled, along with the androgynous shtick that they were going for. Not so much on the cover of this album, but I digress. This pressing pretty much mirrors the original 2009 vinyl pressing. You have a little insert here, which used to be a printed inner sleeve, I think, with the original, with photos as well as some lyrics. But the main difference of this pressing is that it is pressed on red vinyl, and take note of the custom center labels that utilize that classic New York Dolls logo. Next up, we have the Rhino Reserve pressing of the greatest hits of The Doors. Now, the Reserves are more like the sister series to the High Fidelities. This time around, they faithfully replicate the artwork on regular board jackets instead of the industrial stout and glossy tip-ons. They're pressed at Fidelity Record Pressing, the plant that's owned by Music Direct and MoFi, with custom branded inner sleeves, and they utilize original master tapes. Now, the entire Morrison-led Doors catalog received its own box set in the High Fidelity series, along with standalone releases. And I suppose within the audiophile realm, it's the next logical step to have the greatest hits come out as a Rhino Reserve. Now, this compilation originally came out in 1980 and was a key component to getting the group subjected to a new audience almost 10 years after they disbanded. Now, the track list, in my opinion, plays it super safe, but it's become one of the best-selling compilations of all time. Now, typically, compilations are tricky to execute in the audiophile realm since different songs were recorded in different studios with different producers and engineers, but since the Doors utilized the producer/engineer duo of Paul Rothchild and Bruce Botnick for most of their recording career, I'm sure this is going to sound absolutely delightful, and this Rhino Reserve pressing will serve as a solid upgrade to my Walmart white vinyl edition. Now, the outer sleeve that the record comes in has this sort of custom seal over the top, which you have to sort of tear in order to get the jacket out, so I preserved it as best as I could. Packaging is faithfully replicated, and inside we do have a printed inner sleeve, one side consisting of Jim Morrison from the Young Lion photo shoot. But what's interesting is that the back side has lyrics to all the songs, and I believe the original pressing had like their most up-to-date discography on this side. So having the lyrics here is exclusive to this edition. And then, of course, here is the inner sleeve that the records come in, branded by Fidelity Record Pressing. And then here is the custom center label that appears on all the Reserve titles. Next up, keeping it in the audiophile vein, is the Rhino Reserve pressing of 90125 by Yes. By the early 1980s, Yes was completely reinvented with a new sound that strayed from their classic progressive rock roots and adapted to a more commercial, pop-sounding direction. Now, this reinvigorated Yes featured, of course, John Anderson, Chris Squire, and Alan White. Tony Kaye joined the band for the first time in over 10 years, and then the newcomer was South African guitarist, singer-songwriter Trevor Rabin, who really added some new blood into the band. And together, this was the album that subjected the group to a new generation of fans, and it yielded their only #1 single, Owner of a Lonely Heart, along with other great highlights like Hold On, It Can Happen, and Leave It. Now, I'm curious how this pressing racks up against the 2LP 45 RPM Analog Productions pressing, which I do have in my collection. And honestly, Yes is one of those bands that I love enough to have multiples of, so it will be a fun comparison. Now, what piques my curiosity is that the 2LP version states that the source was a half-inch tape copy of the master, and the seal here states that the original master tape was used. Is this true, or was it the copy? Who really knows? Now, the cover has a nice matte finish, and the silver, type detail almost shines on this jacket. And then, of course, we have the printed inner sleeve with all of the lyrics. And then, once again, keeping it all unison, just like the High Fidelities, there's that custom label. Next up, we have even more Yes with Big Generator. Now, this was the follow-up to 90125, and it's crazy that there was a 4-year gap in between albums. Chris Squire has stated that this album should have came out a year before it actually did, and ultimately was crafted under very strenuous circumstances. Now, it's very much in the slick pop style as 90125, which yielded some hits with Love Will Find a Way and Rhythm of Love, but also had some longer songs like Shoot High, Aim Low, and Final Eyes. Now, this is the first time Rhino has technically reissued Big Generator, because back in 2013, Friday Music had licensed it for a reissue, and sometimes they could be hit or miss with their reissues, so it's great to see Rhino get this record back in print. Now, if you remember when this album came out in 1987, the vinyl and CD versions of the album had distinctively different artwork, so of course they replicated the original vinyl packaging. It does come with a printed inner sleeve of the lyrics, and it is pressed on orange vinyl. Next up is Minstrel in the Gallery by Jethro Tull. This right here is a prime nugget in the canon of classic Tull. It kind of harks back to older albums like Benefit, Aqualung, and Thick as a Brick, with the balance of electric and acoustic tunes. Now, some of the highlights on here are the title track, Cold Wind to Valhalla, and the epic Baker Street Muse. This was also bassist Jeffrey Hammond's last album with the band before he quit Jethro Tull and was replaced by Carmen's John Glasscock. Now, since the album celebrates its 50th anniversary this year, it's a means of getting the album back into the market, but this pressing, however, consists of Steven Wilson's remix that he did back in 2015 for the 40th anniversary, which came out as part of those deluxe book sets, and it was also released on vinyl as well, and that pressing is actually out of print. Now, that pressing featured a great 24-page book of photos and liner notes, and unfortunately that is not included here, which is a bit of a letdown, but if you love colored vinyl, it makes up the deficit because it comes pressed on a nice piece of translucent marbled vinyl. Next up is the self-titled release of Stone Temple Pilots. Now, when it comes to the world of 90s alternative rock, these guys are my absolute favorite. Now, this album came out back in 2010, and it was the product of the reunion with vocalist Scott Weiland since 2001's Shangri-La Ti-Da. Now, the making of this album was a bit of a slow process, and it's partially because of Atlantic Records bringing on a lawsuit regarding contractual negotiations, and they were still owed some albums from the group, which ultimately was dismissed, but it was a sour overtone in regards to still giving them an album as opposed to the more direct, independent routes that Weiland had embraced. But once that blew over, the DeLeo brothers and Kretz worked on musical ideas together and sent ideas off to Weiland to work on lyrics as well as redo some melodies if he wanted to. And then you had assistant producer Don Was bringing the parties together and keeping the operations in sync, which is definitely an unorthodox way to record an album. But at the end of the day, Stone Temple Pilots succeeded in making a back-to-basics rock album that drew in influences from country and 60s, 70s rock. Now, the original 2010 pressing has appreciated big time in value, reaching exorbitant values of $200 minimum. So for those who have been patiently waiting for an affordable reissue, this is your opportunity. It does replicate the artwork very nicely, comes with an insert with lyrics as well as a stylized band photo, and it is pressed on sort of, once I get out of the sleeve, maroon colored vinyl. Next up is Funhouse, alternate version by the Stooges. When it comes to the Stooges' body of work, Funhouse is the album that captures the group's raw energy exquisitely on record. Tracks like Down on the Street, Loose, and TVI plant the seeds of what became punk rock, and there's even explorations in jazz with the title track and abrasive avant-garde with the closer LA Blues. Many magazines and musicians have dubbed this the ultimate American rock album. Now, this release presents the album in a different way with various alternate takes, which are all taken from the complete Funhouse Sessions box set that brings together all of the takes recorded for every song on the album. Not gonna lie, I almost bought the vinyl version of the box for a good price when it came out a few years ago. It was very tempting, but I kind of let it slip past me. Now, some of these outtakes also appear on other releases, such as the highlights from the Funhouse Sessions 2LP release from Run Out Groove. There's also a 2LP deluxe version of Funhouse that has some outtakes as well. But this is the first time that it's sequenced in the running order of the original album. So if you want a fun deviation from the original album that you know and love, you can certainly reach for this. Now, the artwork is really cool, basically consisting of a collage of photos of Iggy and the Stooges, very much in line with the original Funhouse cover. There is an insert here that features scans of Scotch tape boxes, and it is pressed on a stunning piece of black and white merge vinyl, as well as a sort of re-rendering of the Butterfly Electra label. Last but not least is the 12-inch single of Pet Sematary by the Ramones. They did the title song for the film adaptation of the Stephen King novel back in 1989, which also appeared on their album Brain Drain. And I think because of the association with the film and its lyrics, it's often targeted as a Halloween song, and it's fitting that they decided to re-release the 12-inch for this time of year. The A-side, of course, features the song, and then the B-side has Sheena is a Punk Rocker from Rocket to Russia. and Life Goes On, which is a B-side from the Halfway to Sanity era, and it bears an uncanny resemblance to Come On Feel the Noise. Regardless, it's one of my favorite lesser-known Ramones songs. Artwork is faithfully replicated, it plays at 33 1/3, and it comes pressed on red vinyl. Okay, so I lied. That Ramones 12-inch wasn't the last one because I got another package from Rhino that I managed to fit into this video, which ended up getting pushed due to the Ace Frehley's passing. But absolutely last, and definitely not least, is We Sold Our Soul for Rock and Roll by Black Sabbath. Now, this compilation first came out in late 75, early 76, when Sabbath's back catalog was acquired by NEMS, and due to some arrangements, the band didn't see any money from this release and was authorized by their former manager, Patrick Meehan, who definitely mishandled their financial affairs, and it was when fans would ask Sabbath to sign their copies that they became aware of its release. So even though it has a sort of negative connotation associated with it, this was most likely a gateway drug for many emerging Sabbath fans, including myself. This compilation and Sabotage were the earliest Sabbath releases I became subjected to and made me love this band so much. Now, the track list relies heavily on the first 4 records, and there's only one song from each: Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, and Sabotage. The only rarity on this comp, at least for UK fans, was Wicked World, which was the B-side of the Evil Woman single, but appeared on the American version of the debut. Now, this reissue replicates the original US Warner Brothers packaging, with the woman in a coffin on the gatefold. The UK pressing had a 4-panel photo insert, which isn't included here. Now, this comes pressed on green vinyl with the Burbank Palm label, which I'm sure you may remember. The Walmart exclusive of this compilation from several years back was on green vinyl, but this time around, it's at least back in print for the indie retailers. So there you guys go. Those are some titles Rhino is releasing this year in 2025 for their Rocktober series. Here's a question for you guys. Which of the records that I showcased will you be snagging for yourself? Or are there any Rocktober titles that I didn't show that you got your hands on? Please drop a comment down below. I'd love to know. And if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead, give it a like, and subscribe to the channel. See you guys in the next video. And most importantly, keep the records spinning.